Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our now third Demo Dozen online showcase. This time we're starting a little bit earlier than our previous iterations. Was it so that our Canadian friends can have the afternoon free to watch their critical game against the Swiss? Almost certainly. We're going to be going through each solution in the next couple of hours with 15-minute increments. We're going to encourage everybody here to actually engage during the event. There are two ways you can do that. If you have questions for the presenters regarding their solutions, please use the Q&A function. The presenters will be paying attention to that and either giving you a couple of minutes at the end to answer those questions or doing it in real time. For everything else, including comments, various links, and what we will use to give the time warnings to our presenters, we're going to use the chat function. So anything specific to the solutions, please use the Q&A. Everything else, please use chat. Now, if we get through the 15 minutes and all the questions have not been answered, we will make sure that we put you in touch directly with our presenters so they can be in touch post-event to answer any questions you have. A recording will also be available to everybody who's registered post-event on our YouTube page. We're going to be sending all of you an email with the link to the recording. The recording will have chapters for each and every demo, so it'll be easy to reference each one of our demonstrations for today. So with that, the first of our speed demos for today will be Sam from Definely, and welcome, Sam.
Thank you. All righty. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Klein, and I will be presenting Definely today. Definely is helping more than 150 law firms and legal teams draft, analyze, and improve complex contracts with confidence. When I speak with transactional lawyers, they rarely complain about legal analysis. They're complaining about everything that gets in the way of it, searching for precedent, finding definitions buried in hundreds of pages, understanding how one change impacts the rest of the agreement, trying to proofread documents before they go out the door, building issues lists instead of advising clients. The problem isn't complexity, it's the friction. Every minute spent navigating documents is a minute not spent negotiating, advising, or thinking strategically about the deal. And the friction matters more than ever. Documents are more complex, and increasingly, first drafts are being generated by AI. And AI can create language in seconds that sounds perfectly reasonable, but the maker can't be the checker. You can't mark your own homework here. Just because a clause has been drafted doesn't mean it works in the context of the broader agreement. It may conflict with other provisions, defined terms, or commercial objectives. As drafting becomes easier, validation becomes even more important. And the firms that win won't simply generate documents faster. They'll understand, validate, and negotiate those documents with confidence. And that's what Definely enables. So today I'll show you how Definely removes friction from that contract review. So let me jump into Word. What I have up here is an SPA. You can use Definely on any contract type. It doesn't matter. You'll see Definely here on the right side. I opened it up. It's a Word add-in. So one of the biggest challenges in contract review is simply understanding what you're reading. So let's say I'm here. This is a 144-page SPA. I'm at section 3.3. I see right above it holdback loan notes. Now, normally to find that definition, that starts a scavenger hunt. I need to read it, scroll to the definition section, find it where it was, return to where it was, and then repeat that process every time another defined term appears. Instead, I simply click it, and Definely shows me how it's defined in this agreement. Now, as I'm reviewing that definition here on the right side, I can see that there are other defined terms embedded within it. Maybe I want to understand holdback loan instrument. I click it, and now I have that definition. Maybe I want to understand who the buyer is. Click again, and now I have that information. And I can continue down that chain of nested definitions as far as necessary. But the important thing is that I never lose my place in the document. I'm building understanding while staying exactly where I was working. The risks in any complex agreement is ensuring that every term is used consistently and correctly throughout the document. And these are the exact kinds of issues that can create risk and are often pretty difficult to identify manually. So if I decide I want to change a definition, let's say holdback loan instrument, I simply click amend. It'll split screen it, take me directly to the right place. I can put up whatever change I want. Well, A, B, C, D, E, nonsense change. We can use normal track changes. Nothing new to learn, just standard drafting. And once I'm finished, I click remove split, and I'm exactly where I started. Again, the theme here is simple. I never need to leave Word, and I never lose my place. So let's zoom out here for a second. Sometimes you don't want to just understand a single term. You want to understand the structure of an entire agreement. The definition report provides a complete view of every defined term of the contract, but it also includes undefined terms and unused terms. Let's take, for example, I'm in the undefined section. I see business day. I can click on this. I can see it was used 44 times throughout this entire agreement. I can see every use and they're all clickable. Maybe we probably should define that term. It's going to help me complete that workflow. I click insert definition. It gives me this pop-up window. We can choose our keyword, means, shall mean, whatever we'd like. We can choose the location. I want this in the definition section. And it knows alphabetically, business day comes right after business. I don't need to do anything other than type in my definition, click insert, and it will put it in the right place in the contract in normal track changes, and I don't have to move an inch. So this gives me an immediate sense of the drafting quality. It allows me to identify these issues before they become problems. Moving on to the reference report. The reference report acts like a table of contents for this entire agreement. So rather than scrolling through hundreds of pages, I can instantly jump to any clause. So I'll click on one here, let's say in section 2. I'd like to see clause 2.1. All I have to do is click it, and now I can have it side by side. So we're not just finding definitions, we're also finding clauses. Now, navigation isn't the only value. Another challenge in these large transactions is collaboration. This is a 144-page SPA. I don't want to send this entire agreement to a tax specialist or an employment lawyer just to get feedback on a handful of provisions. They don't need 144 pages. They need the clauses that are relevant to them. Traditionally, that meant I have to go manually extract sections, copy and paste definitions, checking that I've included all the relevant references, and then I can send that package across for review. Definitely automates that process. I can simply select the clauses I want. Let's say I want all the clauses in section 2. I come here to export, and then in a matter of seconds, Definely includes all the relevant provisions in a new package, as well as all of the related definitions that are there as well, so they can understand that. So in seconds, I can send that over to the appropriate specialist. So instead of asking them to navigate that 144-page agreement, I'm giving them exactly what they need to provide advice. Definely doesn't just help understand and collaborate on documents, it can also extract meaningful information. So here's a fun example. It's 5 p.m. Friday afternoon. We're ready to go on to the weekend. Opposing counsel sends back a heavily marked up draft, and the client wants to call first thing Monday morning to discuss. So historically, someone of the deal team is now going to spend part of their weekend reviewing red lines and manually creating an issues list. Instead, I simply come here and I say, I like to extract all the changes, give me all the markups, all the comments, and within seconds, Definely produces a structured summary of every change. What changed, where it changed, what requires attention. Now we can spend our time discussing negotiation strategy instead of building spreadsheets, and maybe spend our weekends watching the World Cup soccer. So let's move on to the next part of Definely. We've got a great understanding of the agreement we're working with. The next question is, does it reflect the positions we actually want to take? Most firms have valuable precedent sitting inside your document management system. There's years and years. It's a treasure trove. And the challenge isn't whether the right language exists, it's trying to find it. And that typically means you leave your document, open up your DMS, iManage NetDocs, or whatever it may be. You run searches, open those documents, download them, Control F, search within them, and then rinse, wash, repeat until you hopefully find what you want. Instead, Definely Vault connects directly to your document management system environment, and it brings that knowledge right into Word. So let's say I'm looking for a language reduction in purchase price. I can simply highlight it, say, go find similar, and it's going to deliver immediate clause level results. And I can compare multiple versions side by side and quickly determine which one has my preferred precision. I can see the first one, Warren Church's reference, but it's actually missing in my agreement. I knew something was missing, and now Definely helps me surface that issue immediately. The key point here is that I'm leveraging the firm's collective knowledge without ever leaving Word. Don't have to jump into my document management system. I don't have to download documents. I don't have to search manually. So now that we've identified the precedent we want to follow, the next question is, well, where does our draft differ from it? And that's where Definely Analyze comes in. I know I've just executed an SPA that reflects my client's preferred positions. Well, the question is whether those agreements differ. The question is, what differences actually matter? So I can come over to here and Definely and say, help me run a gap analysis against my last executed SPA. And I like to get this in a table format. Now, Definely is looking through your vault, looking through your last executed SPA and comparing these documents, identifying those material differences. And instead of showing me every difference, it's going to give me those substantive gaps I should focus on. Once it gives me those results, I can ask follow-up questions. I can retrieve language directly from the precedent agreement, and I can insert directly into my draft. So I'll give that 1 second to run here. And once it gives me those results, you'll see it's in a really clear table format. It's going to go through each of the differences and identify the existing, I guess my internet went out here. It'll give you all the differences that are, between mine and the one I've done before. You don't have to go to a separate report. You don't have to go to a separate workspace, and it goes directly into the drafting workflow. Once you identify those differences, making changes is only half the challenge, but understanding the consequences of those changes is often much harder. Every lawyer has probably experienced something like, I made a change on page 22, and I just realized later on that it impacted something on page 144. So let's take an example here. I've maybe a bit of an egregious example. I deleted the term completion. I think it's a good illustration here. On the face, it sounds straightforward, but completion is all over this transaction. It's referenced throughout the agreement. It's tied to payment mechanics, deliverables, conditions, warranties, and a bunch of other provisions. So the question isn't, can I delete the definition? The question is, what did I just break? And that's where Definely becomes that safety net. Definely analyzes that change and identifies every downstream impact throughout the agreement. In this case, there are 75 impacted locations. It's mapping the relationships and dependencies across the contract. It's identifying every provision that relies on the concept of completion, and it's explaining why those provisions may need require attention. So I can review each of these individually. I can see what the issue is. In this case, it relies on completion to set an effective date of the transfer. I can understand the rationale, and if I need to make a change, that same amend button from before shows up. I click it. It can take me directly to the right place. I can make my edits, and when I'm done, I remove that split, and I'm back to where I am. This is going to give attorneys confidence that significant revisions don't introduce unintended risks somewhere else in the agreement. Now, to the last piece of Definely, we've completed all the substantive drafting work. The final step is making sure that this document is pristine before it leaves our desk. And that's where Definely Proof comes in. Proof is going to identify drafting issues across the agreement and put these directly in front of the attorney. So for example, let's look at some of these definition issues. I talked about unused terms, undefined terms, but let's take another common example. Defined term, but we didn't capitalize it. We probably intended to capitalize it, but trying to find every single instance is incredibly tedious. So let's take the first one here. I see sellers. Probably should have been sellers with a capital S. All I have to do, I click fix, and Definely will go fix it in the right place, in track changes, in the right format. I can do these one at a time. I can select all, do these in bulk. But the idea here is it makes it really, really easy to find these issues and fix them. Let's take cross-references issues, for example. I see here, it says clause 4.4 exit payment. Well, Definely is identifying that there's an inconsistency here. If I click on it, it's noticing that that's actually corresponding to 4.3. So it's asking the right question. Do you have the wrong number or do you have the wrong heading? In this case, I know the number is wrong. I come in here, I click confirm change, done. Makes it really, really easy to capture these. Beyond that, it's going to capture things like punctuation issues, spacing, paragraph numbering, open bracket text, highlights, formatting inconsistencies, all those drafting risks that are really important to make sure that this contract is ready to be sent out. The goal isn't to replace attorney review, it's to ensure absolutely nothing gets missed. So throughout this demo, notice what I didn't have to do. I didn't have to leave Word to search for precedent. I didn't have to jump around a 150-page agreement looking for definitions. I didn't have to lose my place trying to understand the contract. I didn't manually compare documents. I didn't have to guess whether something I did on page 22 impacted something on page 144. I didn't spend hours proofreading, formatting, doing cross-references, understanding defined terms, and I certainly didn't spend my weekend building issues lists for a Monday morning call. And that's the story of Definely. The challenges facing lawyers today isn't the lack of legal expertise. It's the amount of time spent navigating documents instead of applying that expertise. And as AI generates more and more first drafts, the only challenge that only becomes more important, that challenge, because generating documents is easy. Understanding it, validating it, negotiating it, and standing behind it, that's where lawyers create value. And Definely removes that friction at every stage of the process, from finding the precedent to understanding the agreements, drafting, negotiating, reviewing those changes, and delivering that final document with confidence. Because lawyers aren't paid to search for information. They're paid to analyze risk, negotiate outcomes, and advise clients. The less time spent managing those documents, the more time they could spend doing exactly that. Thank you. That's my quick demo. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, the chat, or you can follow up with this after the call.
Yes, Sam, we do actually have a few questions in the Q&A if you want to refer to those and quickly address them.
Sure. Let me pull that up
I
here.
can read those out if you want, or otherwise I'll just let you read.
Sure. I'm just going to answer them in the order in which I see them, although I think it's most recent to least recent. For the impact assessment, what's it looking at to determine affected locations? It's a great question. It's actually going to do a map of the dependencies of the entire agreement. So it's understanding the cross references to other locations. It's going to do a semantic review of all the different layers. It's understanding all the defined terms. So it's not just looking for the example I showed, was completion used in that particular clause, but did it rely on that definition existing? Next one, do you have to build out the vault yourself? So you don't. What you can do is you have full flexibility on what documents you choose to be available in the vault. Practically no firm we work with brings in their entire DMS. They don't want a 20-year-old clause in the first place. So you could say we want X amount of years by author editor. We want X amount of years for client. We don't want these particular documents because the clients don't want those to be processed. So you have full control, but you really simply just pointed at certain workspaces and you let Definely do the heavy lifting there. Since Microsoft Word is killing all add-ins, what is the alternative for this application? I don't know if I have a good answer to that. I'm not working so closely with Microsoft, but I haven't heard anything to the contrary there. In fact, we have a really tight integration with Microsoft Word. So it works really well today. Everything I showed you today is live, real. You can implement it right now, have you up and running today. What about
Microsoft friends? These are not our words.
What if I define the terms in a schedule so it's not in the document? It's a great question. One of the things you can do, and I didn't show it, is you have the ability to link in other documents to the document you're reviewing. So realistically, there's no such thing as a transaction with one document. There's always Schedule A or ancillary document B. You can link in cross references and definitions. So where other tools might say, hey, this term is undefined, you can say, no, I actually defined it elsewhere, and Definely will be able to pick that up and be able to understand how those documents work together. I think that was all the questions.
Perfect, Sam. Thank you so much. Where can people reach you or find out more?
Yeah, you can go to the Legaltech Hub website. There's a QR code on the screen right there, which will take you to the Definely page. Feel free to read more about it. The Definely website will be linked there, and you can click Contact Us for more information. Or feel free to go to the Definely website directly. That button will be there. And if you reach out, we'll be able to set up a demo and give you a custom demonstration of Definely.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Sam. Just
Thank
before
you.
we introduce Rick from Emma Legal, who is next, just want to remind everybody we will be seeing a Legaltech Hub demo towards the end of this afternoon, and that'll be presented by Jim from our team. But I just want to remind everybody that we have a premium content subscription service available, which gives you unrestricted searches through our world famous directory, which is now over 3,000 legal tech solutions, as well as real high value insights, analysis, and advice on adopting legal technology. We've got the link in the chat to find out more. And with that, I want to introduce Rick from Emma Legal. Rick.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. So my name is Rick. I'm a co-founder and the CEO of Emma Legal. What we actually have built is called a legal due diligence workspace, as you can see over here. So the name Emma actually comes from, if you would give M&A a first name, it comes from merger and acquisitions, her name would be Emma. And that's where we would really build this workspace around. In the workspace, you'll find a lot of features. I'll go through them very quickly from top to bottom before I jump into the demo. So really core at the workspace is that we have a lot of data room connections linked to our workspace. So the idea here is that you can just connect to where your deal is already living, and you can do the work using agentic AI in Emma. Now, if you look at the whole process, if you go from left to right, once you connect a data room, it goes all the way up to drafting a report. Each time when documents are being added in the data room, you will also see that automatically the report is being updated. How do we do this? We do this through the concept of playbooks. What is a playbook? When you typically work on an M&A deal or raising an investment, typically the legal assessment takes place by providing an information request list, as you see over here. Some lawyers call it a due diligence request list as well. And basically what we're going to do is categorize all documents based on that list, although that the folders in the data room might have a very different structure because that's typically something that the counterparty chooses. And then per document type or per practice area in the information request list, you can link checks to it. Those two things together form a playbook. And then we have a lot of modules where you can do a lot more deep dive in the doc review until you get to the final report. Something I want to highlight is that Emma has an agentic AI validation layer. What do we mean with that? It means that within Emma, you can basically use a lot of different LLM providers at the same time. We just select them for you at which task they are best. And very often we do up to like 7 validations between different LLMs before we show an output to the end user. This is making sure to increase the quality of the LDD that we are performing, but also gives you some use cases that you can do within Emma that you cannot do with like a Claude or a GPT. For instance, if a clause is missing in a document, typically you'll see that the single AI models, they will just say like, yeah, we found nothing, so it seems to be fine. And because we don't find a clause that is deviant, Emma would actually surface it that this is a legal risk. Let's say that if, for instance, an IP transfer, if you don't have something like that in an employment agreement or a contractual agreement, you're basically toast on that specific agreement. So with that information to get started, let's jump into the demo itself. So the first thing that you'll see in the platform is an overview of all the data rooms that you're working on. You can see all the statuses, you can see how many documents are in there and how many checks you've actually run on the data room. Now I'm just quickly going to get started and create a data room in the platform. I can choose the output language as well. This is particularly interesting if you do cross-border deals where you have documents with different languages and different jurisdictions in there. So we support all major languages in countries where a lot of M&A deals are happening. I'm just going to click on US English in this case for this demo. And then here you see the first starting point for the playbooks. You can choose between asset deals, investment deals, and share deals. Just for convenience, right now I'm going to choose a share deal, and it comes back later which playbooks we can choose from. Now, as mentioned before, the really cool thing about Emma is that you can connect it with your data source as well. So let's say that I have a deal on Intralinks. I can actually connect to the Intralinks data room by providing my username and password. And if my username, my email address is similar like in Emma, it will actually make the connection automatically. And I can select the data rooms that I have access to in the Intralinks platform itself. And then I can also select the folders that are available there. You could choose to sync up the whole data room at once, or you could also just select folders that you're interested in. Very often legal documents are in specific folders, so you could just sync those within the platform. You would click sync and then it would continuously synchronize between the Emma platform and Intralinks. We do a sync at least every hour in the platform. Obviously, you can also just manually upload documents or zip files. For zip files, we would unpack them and then keep the structure of the original data room. The next step is that you can choose playbooks. Remember that I first selected the share deal. So here I can choose the share deal playbook. Currently, we support M&A deals, VC deals, fund formation playbooks, and real estate deals. And for power users, we see them creating their own playbooks. So you can have your own personal playbooks, or you can share them with your organization for other members of your team or the organization to use. And then the last step is where you're going to provide the permissions on the data room in Emma. So yeah, you can basically share this data room with everybody within the firm, but also externally. Let's say that you're working with a local council on a particular area in the data room. You can, for instance, add them as domain contributors, so they can only add their insights on this particular domain or practice area. I'm going to skip this step, and what you'll see is that we'll actually build up the whole playbook in the platform. Now, how does it look like if it's done running? You'll see an overview like this. So this is in fact a real deal that I've been working on personally a while back. You'll see a whole gap analysis being done based on the information request list in the playbook. And it will also show you all the risks on the different areas or the different practice areas in this data room. Now, for privacy reasons and security reasons, I'm going to go to a demo data room here with a few little less documents. So we're going to work here. Remember that I said that everything in the platform is really linked. So I'm just going to start with the end result, which is the report itself. So within Emma, you can design beautifully reports in like a Word-like environment, and everything is linked back to the playbook where you've identified risk and structured the whole data room. So here, for instance, there's basically two areas. There's commercial contracts and HR, and you'll see that also the LDD report is built up according to that information request list. The nice thing about this report is that it's interactive, so it can always go back into the platform, or it will actually load the documents and also show the citations of where it has found certain findings that it's shown in the LDD report. Now remember that I said that you can work with information request lists. So if you go to the Documents tab, you'll see all the different sections or all the different practice areas in your information request list. Now you might wonder if I want to use my own information request list. Is that a possibility? And then I have good news. It absolutely is, because you can export in an Excel format the IRL, the information request list, and you can just modify it and then upload it again into the platform. So it looks a little bit like this. So you see your different practice areas and then all the documents that you request. You can completely modify it the way that you want it. I could filter, of course, here in this Excel view as well. Let me do that. So just that you have a bit of a sense of what the system does, because many firms use Excel for this today. It will just map like the different agreements in the data room automatically to the information request list. You can also do that here in the platform. So here under corporate, I've share purchase agreement. If I just click on provide documents, it will show me here on the corporate also the share purchase agreements. You can do a lot of more filtering that is really interesting. So you could get an update on which were the latest files that were added, the jurisdictions that are mentioned in the agreements, or the legal entities. And you can really do the work from there. You can open documents, browse through them, and all these type of things. And you can also do it in different languages. So here you see, for instance, the translation capability from Dutch into English. Something that's being used a lot in the Emma platform is the matrix capability. It allows you to review documents of a similar type very fast. And you can identify risks through a tabular view. And the thing that you can do is that you can always go into the document itself. And you will also see the citations linked to the risk. See that here I have an AI flagged risk. I, as an attorney, I can take ownership of it. So instead of that it's an AI flagged risk, I can say I fully agree with this analysis, with this finding, and I take ownership of it. You can also take ownership on the document level. You can also take ownership on the practice area level in the IRL Besides the whole risk flagging, you can also extract key terms. And something that you can do as a more power user is that you can compare documents with a similar template across all of the different versions that are there. So here I've indicated the first document as a template, and I can just see all the redlining across this whole similar category of documents. So in this case, it's an independent contractor agreement, but you can do the same for lease agreements, you can do for employment agreements, you can do even for shareholder agreements and stack them up together to see where differences lie. You can do this up to like 150, 200 documents, even 1,000 documents by just scrolling to the right. You can also have a strategic view. So every time when you see the more darker yellow popping up in the template, you'll see actually where the clauses have been changed throughout the whole data room in the different versions. You can also set templates for the tabular matrix. So for instance, you can choose if you just want to see a currency amount or you want to see a whole text summary, etc. But it's always going back into the document itself, where it's going to show you basically the clauses where that information has been provided. You probably wonder, like, do I have to create all these checks in Emma myself? So the good news is you don't. We have curated checks for you in the platform. So we employ our own M&A lawyers that create this whole library of checks for you. And you can just create them the way you deem fit. So you can bring in your own knowledge in Emma and then really work with playbooks for you. If you want to play with the system and get some ideas, you can even generate certain checks to get inspiration to quickly build your playbook for you. And then in the end, yeah, you get this report, which just looks amazing. You can format it the way you want. You can bring your own templates as well. So I can change the template. I can change the coloring. I can change logos, etc., etc., etc. So it can go really, really far in that sense. So that's in a nutshell the Emma platform. So if you have legal due diligence requirements within your law firm, please reach out. You can submit a form on our website, or you can reach out to me directly. Back to you, Chris.
Rick, you've got 3 questions in the Q&A. If you actually know, it looks like there's now 4. Do you want to quickly address those?
Yes, let me quickly refresh it. All right, I'll start with the top one from Andrew. So on managing multiple point solutions, how does Emma reduce the complexity? So great question, Andrew. So the way that we look at it, we particularly call it a workspace, because if we look at a lot of work that transactional lawyers do, about 50% of their time is spent on due diligence. So we really took this end-to-end view, where you start with connecting the data room all the way up to the report. So my argumentation would be like, you don't need a lot of point solutions, but you just need the right ones. And with Emma, you're really good covered for LDD. And you really can work in it. You don't only need to use the AI, you can also just do the collaboration as I've just shown in the platform. Know that you can also tag different users and ask questions, etc., etc. Another question, Harvey and Agora are starting to expand into the specialist areas. What specifically do you believe they can't easily replicate in M&A due diligence? So there's a lot really to unpack in this one. I think the core thing is the whole ecosystem that we built. So the breadth of data room connections that we have is just super cumbersome to build. Every data room deals with permissions differently, deals with the way the documents are sent through on a technical level differently. So we really put a lot of effort there because it's our core business. Then on the AI side as well, what you typically see is that Harvey and Agoras, they started off as chat interfaces, and now they're trying to do some agentic stuff. but they're very broad. I mean, they do it for litigation, they do it for M&A, they do it for a lot of different practice areas, and just very difficult to find the common denominator because LDD is something specific. You're finding a needle in a haystack very often. So that's where our validation layers really make a huge difference according to our clients. And we have a lot of clients that use both Harvey and Agora and then Emma for LDD. But if you want to chat more about that, happy to do so.
Rick, we're really out of time here. I see there's two questions left. One of them is an easy yes, no. Can we integrate this with Clio?
You technically could, but we don't have a standardized integration with Clio yet. So, but happy to take it up in the chat. We did it
Great.
with other
And the
meta
other
management
question, I will
systems.
put the question regarding the point solution question directly in touch with you, and I'll let you catch up with that questioner post event. Thank you so much, Rick. Really appreciate it.
Thanks all for having me.
Thank you. All right, and then next we're moving on to Nancy with Billables AI. Welcome, Nancy.
Hi there. Excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I am going to take over the screen. Just by way of intro while this is loading, my name is Nancy. I am the co-founder of Billables AI, and I'm really excited to chat with you all today about AI timekeeping and task intelligence. So let me pull up my demo. We're going to start with something a little more interactive, just because I know sitting through a bunch of presentations is hard. It's a lot to ask. And I know you guys are kind of in the midst of it. Can everyone see my screen, just to confirm?
There we go. Yes, we're good now.
Okay, awesome. Great. So yeah, excited to be here. Like I mentioned, my name is Nancy. I'm the co-founder of Billables AI. Excited to talk to you all about everyone's favorite topic, which is timekeeping. So obviously this is something that people feel really passionate about and love. And, you know, obviously I'm joking. This is a huge pain point that we have heard from many law firms and lawyers about the bane of people's existence. And I wanted to kind of start today before diving into the full demo, just in grounding us in the problem space, because I think this lends a lot of context as to why we exist as a company. And for anyone who's been familiar with the billable hour and kind of timekeeping, you've probably heard these stats, right? This has probably been beaten into you in terms of, you know, the reason why it's so important to be really diligent about timekeeping. And one of the biggest things that we see across firms of all sizes is this issue of time leakage, right? So when you're working, if you're not capturing your time in real time, and we'll get into why that's hard, you're basically leaking time throughout the day. So if you wait till the end of the day to enter your time, you're losing like 10%. If you wait for the next day, you're losing up to 25%. End of week, I mean, we see end of month billers. So you can imagine how that problem really grows exponentially. And so I wanted to start with a little bit of an interactive exercise. So if folks want to kind of raise your hand in the chat or just kind of nod along and put in the comments, you know, any reactions. I wanted to outline some of the personas that we often see when it comes to timekeeping. And I want you to keep this in mind as I'm going through the demo to think about like, hey, are these the problems that I'm facing in my day-to-day when it comes to timekeeping? Is this something that resonates with someone I know, someone I work with? And, you know, just as a fair trigger warning, some of these may bring back some painful memories of timekeeping, so we'll proceed with caution. But the first persona that we kind of see quite often is this constant context switcher. So this is the person that is switching between calls and emails and working on multiple matters at once and kind of losing track of what they're doing when. And by the time they're entering their time, it's already a blur. So that time leakage issue that we're talking about. Give a show of hands if this is something that kind of resonates with you. The other profile that we see is the forgetful filer. So this is someone who is often reconstructing their time at the end of the month or at the end of the week, where it feels like kind of this forensic puzzle piece exercise. You're trying to go back through your old emails. You're trying to figure out, like, what meeting was I in? When did that end? What emails did I send? How did I kind of spend my last few weeks? The other persona that we see quite often is this narrative novice. So this is really about training in the preferences of the firm and the client billing guidelines. So for a lot of folks, as they bring new associates on board or new members join the team, it's really hard to kind of get them up to speed in terms of like what a good billing entry looks like, because frankly, there's not one right or wrong answer. It just depends on the preferences of the client, sometimes the firm's, rules and, their own process. And so just kind of getting that consistency and quality up to snuff across the firm is a huge challenge for a lot of folks. Then there's the productive but penniless. So this one we hear a ton, right? We hear, I'm working nonstop all day, 8, 10, 12 hours, or I can see my team is working nonstop. But when I look at their billables, it does not reflect that at all. They're in the office however many hours, they're billing just a few of it. And it's this big delta, this big gap that they're trying to reconcile and understand, where did all the time go? And then the last one, which we hear more and more, I would say lately in the last year or two, is the on-the-go overlooker. So this is someone who is spending a lot of time maybe in and out of the office, right? They're taking a client call in the car or sending an email, on their way to a meeting. And it's super easy to forget that time when you're on the go. And so these are the different personas that we see. And I want you to keep this in mind as we think about this demo that I'm about to share, which is all around AI time tracking. And I think the lesson that we've learned here is like, these personas exist and these problems exist because it's just human nature. We're not meant to be stopwatches. So, it's not a fault of your own doing that, you're losing time or kind of forgetting to file certain time entries and capture work. It really is not what we're meant to be doing, right? We're meant to be doing the knowledge work, the like deep, thoughtful work, the actual core work. And the timekeeping is unfortunately like a necessary evil that comes along with the job. It's needed. It's how most firms get paid. And so that's really why we exist as a company. So Billables AI was founded to help with automated timekeeping. But as we've evolved, I'm going to show you a little bit about where that evolution has really taken us beyond timekeeping and how we see this really poised for the future of a world where, there may be different billing models that exist. And so just to pivot into the demo, imagine that you are going about your day. You are sending emails in Outlook, you're joining Teams calls, you're joining Zoom calls, you're doing research, you're pivoting from client to client, and you're doing this in the places that work is already happening, in Outlook, in Zoom, in Teams, in Word. And while that's happening, quietly in the background on the billable side, we're basically populating your time entries as the day goes on. So what I'm showing you here is a dashboard with time entries completely generated by Billables AI. And this is running completely in the background, not interruptive to your workflow, meaning you don't have to start and stop a timer. You don't have to take notes on what you're doing. This is just populating. You don't even have to come to the Billable site. It's just here when you choose to review it. And so by the end of the day, you would essentially have your full list of time entries that kind of map out all the work that you've done throughout the day. And so just to double click on a couple examples, you can see here that each of these time entries alludes to a source activity that led to that time entry. In this case, this is an email. And when you click on it, you can actually see that this was an email thread where there were a couple responses back and forth between this user and her client. We actually create a link that takes you to that email. So you can see if everything loads quickly, which We'll give it a minute. It takes you to the original email, in this case in Outlook, where you can just jog your memory because you're going to be sending a ton of emails throughout the day. You may not remember each exact one that was sent. And so this is a quick way to jog your memory and remind yourself, oh yeah, I did send that. And what we're doing is we are calculating the amount of time spent, in this case, drafting, sending those emails. We are automatically assigning it to a client and matter. So this is with an integration with your practice management system. And then we're generating a narrative description that, out of the box follows industry best practices for detailed narratives, right? It has like an active verb. It kind of uses standard naming convention. And so ideally, you can approve these time entries, which are a draft for you to review with one click. Now, you may also want to make some edits. So you can always modify any of these fields. You can change the client and matter. You can edit or add activity task codes. You can change the narrative description. So in this case, maybe I wanted it to be past tense instead of present tense. So I'll make that change and save it. And the great thing about how this system works is it really learns from your edits. And so the more that you use it, the better it gets for you. So it'll pick up on the preferences that you have, down to the grammatical preference, right? Some people prefer present tense versus past tense. Some people prefer semicolons versus periods. It will get better with client matter matching. So all of this is really taking signals, implicit signals from you to really build the way that you want to. And so as you're going throughout your day, you'll see time entries populate across all of the different work activities. So I showed email there. This is an example of research that was done. You can see the different sites that were visited. As they were doing research, it links you to those sites too. So again, you can jog your memory. And then we also pull from your calendar as well as any meetings. So if you had a calendar event, maybe for an in-person meeting, it was scheduled for 30 minutes, that would obviously show up here as a 0.5. But let's say that meeting was a Zoom meeting and it actually ran long, we would use the true time of the call. So in this case, it did run long by 10 minutes. You can see that the time ascribed to it was 0.7 hours. And so as you're going throughout the day, you can rest easy knowing that this is populating in the background. You don't have to be mindful of a timer that you have to start and stop. You don't have to distract yourself from the core work to kind of pivot into this like admin mode to create your time entries. It's all here for you. So one thing I wanted to touch on is how we kind of collect this data. So I think oftentimes there's this misconception in the world of AI timekeeping that we have this kind of big brother effect of, monitoring everything that's happening on your computer and kind of scraping all the relevant information across everything that graces your screen, every pixel on your screen. And what we've done at Billables AI is we've kind of taken a different approach where we've really leaned into our integrations as the primary mechanism for data collection. So a lot of the data that we get is through these secure API connections that we have with the Microsofts of the world. So Outlook, with Word, with Adobe, with Zoom, with Teams. We work with a number of voice over IP providers, Google, RingCentral, etc. And the benefit of that is, it's secure and private because we're obviously building to the security standards of each of those platforms. We're also getting minimal amounts of data that we need to create the time entry and nothing more. So we never store the emails, we never store the document itself. We're just getting some metadata, timestamps, some context around what you're working on and for how long to create these time entries and make it as valuable as possible without overextending and kind of getting access to more than we actually need. The other benefit of this integration approach is accuracy. So you can see here, when we are pulling in these emails, we're getting pretty accurate timestamps of exactly how long it took to draft that email. And we get this question a lot of like, what if I open up an email, start drafting it, and then get distracted or go take a lunch break? It's really accurate to your active time. And that is because of our direct integration with Outlook and with Google. And then the last benefit of this kind of integration-led approach is that it's device agnostic. So what that means is if you are sending email from your phone, or maybe you're joining, a Teams call from your iPad or wherever, we're able to capture that activity without you having to install something separate on each device, because it's all going through your account, your Zoom account, your Microsoft account, and we're able to capture that seamlessly. So if you think back to those personas that we went through, the on-the-go overlooker, right? This is like a very common one. And we've heard that because of the integrations we have that do tend to work across devices, that it is able to capture so much more time that they would have otherwise missed. And what we've seen is about 10 to 30% more time, obviously depending on your current timekeeping habits. And so a couple other things that I wanted to note. One, we also
Sorry,
recognize.
Nancy, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up here. We're out of time, and if you could just give us a 30-second summary here, and I'll get the people who have asked you questions. I'll put them in contact with you post-event.
Okay, absolutely. Sorry, and I wasn't able to see the Q&A while I'm presenting, so I was kind of missing some of that. But the main thing that I kind of wanted to wrap on is, we've talked a lot about like what is the future of the billable hour, and what we've seen is actually a lot of firms that we work with are exploring alternative fee arrangements or different ways of billing that kind of pave the way for the AI future. And with the data that we're able to capture through our integrations of knowing, how much time is spent on email activity versus, meetings versus, different software that you're using, right? How much time are you spending in a Harvey or Legora? We are actually helping firms make a lot of decisions around their own operational intelligence and their own practices and productivity. So being able to kind of share a firm-wide view on how time is truly being spent, not self-reported, but truly being spent. That data is invaluable, and we're just on the cusp of that. So we're really excited to see where that kind of goes in the future.
Thank you, Nancy. Yes, I will put we've got a couple of questions for you, and I'll put them directly in touch with Nancy at the end of this. Carlos, could I ask you to turn off your camera, please? And I'm going to now introduce David from Harvey. David, welcome.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm well. How are you going?
Good. Excited to be here. So my name is David Kalenda. I'm a legal engineer at Harvey. And before joining Harvey, I was an M&A and corporate attorney at O'Melveny & Myers. So today I'm going to walk through Harvey. Hopefully, a lot of y'all have heard of Harvey before. But really, the point of Harvey is a way to make you and your legal teams better lawyers by freeing up your time to make legal judgments instead of doing repetitive tasks. So today I'm just going to demo the product and run through a couple of workflows that I did a number of times when I was at O'Melveny to show how they can be more efficiently done using Harvey. So let me share my screen. And so this is the homepage for Harvey. And so Harvey has a number of different tools that you can use to really kind of like jumpstart any project that you're working on. So we have an assistant tool that is like a basic chatbot that has a lot of extra capabilities. You can add different sources, so you can search. We have a LexisNexis integration, so you can do legal research through LexisNexis and have it in here. You can use a Harvey guide to ask you how to use Harvey better, so you can use Harvey's legal brain and judgment to improve your use of Harvey. You can you do a web search. We also have a shared spaces where you can work with, if you're an in-house, you can work with your outside counsel. If you're a law firm, you can work with an in-house team. You can work, if you're on a deal, you can work kind of cross-functionally with the other side. And then the two that I'm really going to highlight a lot today are going to be our Vault feature and our Agent Builder. And so Vault is a secure repository that functions as a document management system, and we have an integration with iManage that allows you to sync folders from iManage straight into your vaults. And so let me just jump into Vault now so you can kind of see what it looks like. So you can see I have all these different folders here in Vault. And again, these can all be synced with your iManage, so you don't need to do any extra integrations. It's all kind of done right in there for you. And so I can go in and I can click into folders, and you have full folders, and you can click in here. But really the aspect I want to highlight here in Vault, beyond just being a document repository where you can store up to 100,000 documents, is what we call a review table. And what a review table does is it allows you to analyze up to 10,000 documents at a time across a number of different provisions. And so you can analyze it quickly. So I can go in here and I can choose, what specific types of agreements I want to analyze. I could look for all of them. Here, we're just going to say we're going to look at the supply agreements that we want to look at. And I'm going to build out a review table. So it's going to analyze each column across all the different aspects that I want to look at. So in this case, I'm just going to look at, we want to know the title, the parties, governing law, change of control provisions, and termination dates. And again, these could be anything that you're asking for. And so I'm going to generate the columns, and as you can see, it starts to populate quite quickly. So as I'm talking, you'll see that it starts populating the output and giving it, and I've also got it fully baked so that we can move to that in just a second. But a couple of things I want to highlight here is, again, you can analyze 10,000 documents at a time, which goes way beyond the context window of what you would get at out of a standard query, even through our assistant tool or through any other AI or LLM tool that you're using. And so again, as you see, we've already gone through and it's already generating a ton of output, going through, analyzing these documents and pulling out the important information that we've looked for. So I'm going to switch over to the completed review table as I've done. And so again, it has done all this work for you. So you might have hundreds or thousands of documents that you need to go through and review, and Harvey can get that done in minutes instead of taking a team of attorneys days, if not weeks, to get through all of this. So not only does it save you time and allow you to use your brain and your judgment on more high value tasks, but it also gets the product done more quickly for your client. And in the deal space, time kills deals. So anytime it takes longer to get something done, that slows things down. So you want to be moving things forward as fast as possible. And I know I'm highlighting M&A and corporate examples because that's my background, but I also want to highlight that this could really be used for anytime where you're needing to analyze a number of different documents. So in the litigation space, if you're doing discovery and you've got thousands of documents that you need to analyze, you can run through a review table to highlight and pull out key pieces of information. Additionally, you can kind of query Harvey specifically about the review table that you have here. So right in here, without even needing to leave the tool, you can export this to a CSV, you can export it to a Word document. And then also we have cross-functional, you can work as a team on it as you're going through it. So if you're going through and you're wanting to click into a specific thing, you can review. Harvey cites to exactly where in the document it's pulling this information from. So you can click in and confirm what you need. You can verify it. You can assign it to a team member. So it's very easy to use as a tool for a team. It's not just a tool for an individual lawyer to use, but it's a tool that can be used across a team and to enable you to work together better as a team. So that was Vault. I'm also going to show, I want to show off Agent Builder. And so what Agent Builder is it allows you to do a repetitive task and to set up kind of firm guidelines so that Harvey will run these tasks over and over again. And all you need to do is click in to your agent to run it rather than having to think of what your prompt is going to be, figure out all that stuff. You've already done that ahead of time so that Harvey knows exactly what to do. So for example, if you're reviewing NDAs and you're always reviewing NDAs, Harvey's able to do that. If you're drafting, if you're analyzing sort of discovery requests, you can look at that. Here, the example I'm going to show is going to be drafting ancillary documents in the context of an M&A deal. So go to the agent, I can click create new workflow agent. And the great thing is that they're text agents. So you can just type in whatever you want to do. So here I'm going to say I'm going to be reviewing an MSA and I want to draft ancillary documents based off of that. So I can come in with something, with a lot of text here, but also I want to show a really awesome aspect of Harvey, which is our improve prompt button. So you can enter something simple like review and analyze the MSA, and I can click improve prompt, and it will pull out a much more detailed version, and it'll say where it's looking for information here. But I'm going to jump ahead for the purposes of time. I know these are really quick demos, and it feels like I'm rushing through everything, but I want to be able to show a lot of different functionality here. So I'm going to go to our fully baked agent. So here we have reviewed an MSA, and so it pulls out a red line and review. So here is the agent. So I've entered my prompt over here, and here is where the agent walks through all the steps that it's going to take. So it's got instructions here for what the agent is going to do. It's going to ask me for information, so it may ask me to upload the MSA or anything else I need. It's going to pull out deliverables that it's going to deliver and any clarifications. Additionally, I can look at it in diagram form if you're more of a visual learner and you kind of want to be able to see things visually. It pulls up as a diagram so that you're able to kind of like see the workflow rather than having to read through all the text. But the other cool thing is that you're able to edit anything in here. So if the instructions are a little off, if you want to go into more detail somewhere in the instructions here, or if you want to change what the deliverable is, you can go in and very easily edit anything within the agent. And then here, what you can do is you go through and you can test the agent or share the agent. So you, again, highlighting the cross functionality of the teams is you can share the agent with your team members. By default, it's private to respect ethical walls, but you can share with anyone on your team that you want to. And so here I'm going to go and show the finished agent. So the finished agent here, we have it's drafted a transition services agreement based off of the MSA. And so we're able to, all it asks you for is to upload. It'll ask questions to clarify. One really awesome thing about Harvey is that instead of guessing, if it doesn't know what to do, it will ask a clarifying question to you. So it's got its legal brain built in, and it's able to ask specific clarifying questions to make sure that it it's not guessing and trying to figure out what it is, but it's going back to you, because you as the lawyer are the one who is making the judgments. You are the one who's ultimately responsible. So Harvey does a great job of allowing you to still run a deal, run a project, and you're in charge. And Harvey is just really streamlining your ability to run through the project and freeing up your brain to be able to make legal judgments. And so one other thing is that, again, here you can export this document and pull up the document. And for the purposes of this demo, I've gone ahead and pulled up the document. And here we've got the transition services agreement that we pulled from that PSA. And so this was drafted all in a matter of minutes. And if you do M&A, you know that, the ancillaries come in. By the time the PSA is finalized, you really want to get those ancillaries done as fast as possible. So the fact that this can draft up a document in a matter of minutes is really a huge time saver. And I want to highlight one last thing is Harvey also has an integration with Word. So you can ask any of the questions that you would ask in Harvey, you can run them through Word. So you can edit clauses, you can have it edit the whole document without ever having to leave the Word application. Because I know sometimes that can be frustrating of, you've got all these awesome legal tools, but you're having to switch between 10 different tabs and 5 different windows and trying to figure out exactly how to best utilize this. Harvey makes it really simple. Everything's on the web app, and then in Word, you can just work straight out of Word. And again, we integrate with Outlook and iManage. We integrate with a number of different virtual data rooms. So Harvey is just a really powerful tool to allow you to utilize your legal judgment while kind of clearing stuff off your plate by doing some of the more busy work, some of the more repetitive work for you, so that you have more time to be a lawyer and you can better serve your clients. And with that, I know my time is almost up. So thank you. And if you'd like more information or to book a demo, please visit harvey.ai for more information. And I'll pass it back to you, Chris.
Appreciate it, David. Thank you very much, mate. And shockingly, no questions for Harvey. Okay. That means you did a really good job, David, and answered them all in your demonstration. Moving on now to Martin from Document Drafter. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you so much, Chris. Nice to be here. Can you hear me, Chris?
Yep, all good. Share your screen and it's all yours, Martin.
Wonderful. Thank you. I suppose you can see my screen now. Today, let me know if you can. Today, I'm going to show you how agentic templating works. It's an entirely new category of legal AI, I would have to say. Before we get to that, though, I'm going to show you a little bit on the end user experience with a Document Drafter, which is you could call it a traditional document automation or assembly platform. And that's just to set the scene for you to understand the context of what we're doing here. But the main event is the agentic templating, that is using an agent, in this case, a Claude-based Opus 4.8 powerful machine to draft a template instead of doing it manually. But as mentioned, to set the scene, we're going to start out by quickly showing you what the end user sees, what it is we are going to create. So when the user comes in to the platform, you might navigate to, depending on what you have access to, a questionnaire. We were just talking about transaction law, so why not have a look at a very sort of comprehensive share purchase agreement, a package here with all the ancillary documents and so on. As you go through the questionnaire, you're presented with all the legal and commercial questions that you're going to consider when setting up, in this case, a quite complex transaction suite with all the different choices need to be made when you generate all these documents. Of course, the result will be to generate a full suite of transaction-ready documents, first draft, of course, from the platform. Each user has a questionnaire page where you can find ongoing work, and I think I have a project demo doesn't saved here. I filled out a bit earlier. This is a totally different questionnaire, look and feel, but I just quickly want to show you what it is that is going on when you fill out these questionnaires and produce your documents. And for that purpose, I have my preview here. The preview shows you how the document will be assembled if I choose to generate it. It's for transparency reasons. Now, having opened up a preview, I can include, for an example, a transitional service agreement and refresh the preview. And what I get is a red line that shows you exactly how adding the concept of a transitional service agreement into this share purchase agreement will affect the document. So there's a schedule coming in, there's a definition coming in. You'll notice there's some cross-references being updated. That's also nice. Each of the parties delivering the transitional closing service agreement signed on closing. And finally, a covenant on separation from sellers group. So this is what we are going to prepare. We're going to prepare this automated template or precedent, as they call it in the UK. But anyway, having all the model choices extracted into a questionnaire that, of course, becomes a massive knowledge repository on the craftsmanship of creating documents. You can, of course, also have data entry points in your questionnaires. It's not as knowledge heavy, but it's of course also an option. Now, the way you would manually automate documents, we went to market long before document automation. Well, it looks like this. So this is the authoring. This is where you create the template. You'll have an application that runs directly in Microsoft Word. You'll have some wording here that will form eventually, of course, the content of the final document. But this is authoring mode. This is where the best M&A attorneys or the knowledge lawyers or whoever you are, who you want to do this work, will create the templates. So instead of having square brackets as you're used to and footnotes perhaps or comments, you just add a question. In this case, the question would be if you want to add a seller's rep, and you would define two possible answers for the end user to answer that question. And it might be you only want the question to appear if there's several sellers. So now we build the logic into the questionnaire as well as a new question. And then we want to say, okay, when should the clause about the seller's rep come into the questionnaire? That's easy. That's if the answer to the new question is yes, there's a seller's rep. This is the manual process. Now there's a direct link between 68.1 and the text. Then you would launch. And of course, we're back at the final result, just to refresh. If there's one seller, we're not talking about a seller's rep. If there's a seller's rep, okay, yes. If so, then it adds the wording. Now, what we then did with the agentic templating is we gave the agent arms and legs, I guess you could say, or the ability to actually touch the author add-in, as I just showed you, as well as the Word document. And let's say I was working in an employment team in a large law firm, for an example, and I was about to start creating a new template. I would simply find that new template. Here's my service agreement. That's the one I used to use. It has square brackets, add the name of the company, the name, and so on and so forth. But now, instead, I'll just say, also be polite when you use Claude always, please automate this document. That's, of course, a broad instruction. What it does now is the exact same as I would do if I was an employment lawyer that was about to, or legal professional that was about to automate this document. I would simply look at the document. This is a flat template. It's a Danish CEO template, and it has some optional clauses wrapped in square brackets and so on. Okay, I see there's a bunch of placeholders for data fields, the name of the company, the address, and the CEO details, and the effective date, and so on and so forth. Easy enough. Then there's also some optional and conditional clauses. Okay, let's have a look. For an example, it only has to say this especially applies to, and then there's an example of things that should be run through the supervisory board by the CEO before decision is made. It also has to say this service agreement replaces all previous agreements concerning CSO employment in the company. Of course, only if the CEO is already employed in the company. And then let's just ask it to. It had some questions for me here. You can see it wanted me to clarify before it continued. But that's the power of this free-form agent. It has, as mentioned, the capabilities as you and I would have, automating the document. What is it then going to do? Well, it's going to build the questionnaire over here in the right-hand side. I did for the purposes of being able to keep calm while doing this live in a webinar. It takes around 3 minutes and 36 seconds automating this pretty comprehensive template that has a lot of different variations when you use the Opus 4.8 model with a high effectiveness, and then it will simply build the questionnaire and tag the document. Is it then doing it online? No. This is just a preview of the questionnaire and the document. The actual automation is happening inside Microsoft Word. We have taught the agent the concept of house styles. It can use all the cross-reference features and track changes and stuff like that in the Microsoft Word document. And at the same time, it can use all the features available for the automation. So we'll have to give it a little bit of time. Normally, I'm jumping directly into telling jokes, but we learned that translating Danish jokes into English doesn't always turn out well. So I will simply look at my talking paper here where it says no translated jokes. Are there any questions, perhaps in the chat? Does the document drafter platform give firms the ability to track all of these drafting decisions over time and see how they change over time? Yes, it does. And what I assume there, Joseph is asking is, can you capture how the end users are answering the questionnaire? And the answer is yes, you can capture exactly how the questionnaires are answered. For an example, if you fill out X 100 commercial lease agreements through Y period, you can report, for an example, in Power BI, exactly how answers are distributing across the board or across the questionnaire. It's at the non-solicitation and non-competition clauses right now, and now the signature blocks. There's hope. Any other questions at this point? And Joseph, let me know if I did not answer the question.
Yeah, there's another one there, Martin. Does document drafter allow for the automation of PDF files?
It actually does. We created that for an American company a couple of years ago because you have so many forms for government and taxation purposes, stuff like that. It works essentially in the same way. It's fillable PDFs though. So for automation, it has to be fillable PDFs. So that you can actually also, once you've filled out the questionnaire and generated the document, you can then create fillable PDFs as well. So it's very good for that. And actually, I have a point on that, but I'll have to save that if there's time for at the end of the session. You'll see that now the agent built the questionnaire. I have to say it's pretty magnificent, but it's not because I created it. It's just the agents that are crazy when they have a tool that works well. So you'll see that it says Q1 here. It might be small on the screen share, but anyway, it does say Q1 here. And that means that company name 1 goes in there and company address goes in there. You'll see it says A71 there. That's because this part here is tagged, should only come in if yes is selected. What does this mean? This means that it's very easy to review the document. As you also can see, I can multitask. I would like to add a non-solicitation of employees. So it could work on that in the meantime. It also creates markup. You can toggle whether you want to see. So anything it adds or deletes to the document is always in markup against the document you started the session. with. You can also toggle in different ways, so you can always see a delta between the last iteration and so on. Now, I say I would like to add an on-solicitation of employees, and what it does is, of course, understanding this document. It says, okay, but what is this kind of a document? It has to be into the context and so on. There is already a non-solicitation clause. That's for customers. And there's also a non-competition clause. Okay, fine. How does the clause then potentially look in this document for non-solicitation of employees? And you'll see it inserted in markup here. It also inserted the new questions. So what we essentially did there was we just added new knowledge to our questionnaire, include a non-solicitation of employees. If yes, okay, then what's the duration after termination? Does it also apply to group affiliated companies? And what is the penalty for breach if that happens? Maybe we could add a toggle for whether I can see what that's a good thing about clause. Clause it understands even Danglish, whether it applies to all or only those employees that worked with the CEO. That's a typical thing in this case a Danish executive service agreement. Now the next thing, of course, is we are now going to harvest knowledge from other documents, because that's essentially the process when you create a template. As a lawyer, I used to be one myself before we founded this company. But the process is you have a good starting point. I call it the base document. That's the one we added here, right? And then you start iterating. Okay, maybe I have another good example. Let's upload that other good example. I have it here. That's another version of an executive service agreement. Please read this doc and see if there's any variations. We do not cover in the agenda. So what I essentially do now is I make this very simple for the agent, because what it does is it says, okay, these are the conceptual choices we came sort of that was harvested or extracted from the base document. But now we can, in a very lean and effective process, start harvesting from all the other good examples we have. So it creates a very, very, very lean, effective way of extracting knowledge on a conceptual basis, on a model basis, rather than on a sort of having to compare all the many pages and the million words and so on. And now you can see my good friend here, the agent said, okay, which variations do we have in the attached document that's not yet covered, and then it extracts that. So essentially, you have this sort of harvest machine. It harvests knowledge into your templates, and once you're ready to use this from the end user perspective, well, you'll simply upload it. Let's say we upload it here, dozen, and as soon as you do that, all your many colleagues will be able to go to the platform and use the template. Where did I put it? The demo doesn't. And here's your automated template, and it will now generate different iterations of a CEO contract. That's exactly that.
Martin, excellent. Thank you so much. There is a question in the Q&A. Since it's someone who's anonymous, I can't put you in touch with them afterwards. Could you go in, Martin, into the Q&A and actually answer that in writing regarding the balance of responsibilities between legal engineers and lawyers? Thank you. And before I introduce Andrew, I just want to let everybody know about a couple of events that we have coming up with Legaltech Hub. For anyone who is going to be joining us in ILTACon in Nashville in August, we are returning with our world famous trivia challenge. We're going to put the link in the chat. And for those of you who are joining us from law firms or from corporate legal departments, we welcome you to join us for the biggest Sunday night social event at ILTACon every year, the Trivia Challenge with award-winning quiz master this forward. Do not look up what awards have been awarded because they don't exist. And also for anyone interested in joining us for our flagship innovation conference in New York in September, we will also be putting the link there as spots are filling up fast. So a couple of events coming up. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew from PointOne.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name's Andrew. I'm the sales lead at PointOne. My background, though, is in legal practice, so I have some experience with the problems that we're solving. What I'm going to do here is I am going to just walk us through a very short deck, and then we will actually go into a demo of the platform here. So very high level, PointOne was started a few years ago. It came out of Silicon Valley. The founding team is comprised of really world-class AI engineers and also people with legal practice experience. So the team is from places like Google, Amazon, Applied Intuition, a PhD from Princeton, a former Stanford professor. Those are the people that built the product. We've grown really significantly over the last year, and a month ago we raised a Series A led by tier 1 venture capital firms at the bottom of the screen. So the 3 products that we're bringing to market are as follows. There's PointOne Time. That's the flagship product that really eliminates manual time entry by generating time entries on your behalf for all your work with a digital footprint. PointOne Review is an AI-native pre-bill review tool, and then PointOne Rules is our outside counsel guideline compliance module. It extracts and applies all outside counsel guidelines and enforces those guidelines at the point of time entry creation inside of PointOne Time and also in the pre-bill review phase. So we're working with nearly 200 law firms globally across multiple continents. Some of these firms are small and mid-sized firms. An increasing number of these firms are some of the largest and most sophisticated law firms anywhere in the world. The results that we're creating for our customers are as follows. 1, we're dramatically cutting down on the amount of time associated with manual time entry. 2, we're increasing billable output very meaningfully by 1, recapturing what would have been lost time, and then also by freeing up a lot of time during the day that would otherwise have gone to manual time entry. And then finally, we, through particularly our outside counsel guidelines compliance module, are able to meaningfully improve realization rates by ensuring that all the time entries that are being created for you are compliant with internal and external firm billing guidelines. So as I mentioned, we're serving some of the largest law firms in the world, and one of the legal practices that we're serving is the state attorney general's office in the US. And from the very beginning, this product was designed to serve sort of the enterprise. So just the most rigorous security and compliance policies, whether from a law firm or from a state government. Importantly, we're also able to integrate with all the major practice management systems, single tenant and multi-tenant deployment options inside of AWS with customizable geolocation. That's really it as far as the deck. The next thing that we'll do is we'll actually go into a demo of the product. So at a very high level, you can see I'm in a Windows environment right now. PointOne is available in Windows and in Mac. It comes as a desktop application. It can also be used as a web page. It's also available in a mobile application. So it can use on iPhone and Android, unlimited number of devices on a per user basis. And when I open up the PointOne desktop application, as you can see at the bottom of the screen here, it's a very simple, intuitive user interface, and there's a few different ways to generate time entries. So we're on today here, the upper left-hand side of the screen, and there are no time entries found. When we think about what PointOne is doing as far as automating the time entry workflow, much of that automation is inside of this button here called Auto Capture. So a lot of legal work is being done on your computer, but then a significant percentage, a meaningful percentage, is being done off of your computer, on your phone, on your tablet, or even in pen and paper. So we have a few different forms of automation to be able to generate time entries for all your work with a digital footprint, and some of which with a non-digital footprint. The first here is called an hourly schedule. This is really for the work that's happening off of your computer. Every 60 minutes, PointOne is talking to commonly used applications like your email, your calendar, your Zoom account, Teams accounts, your firm's voice system, and it is generating time entries based on that API connection so that you will always be up to date to the hour with respect to your work inside of those applications. So just as you often send emails from your phone, you may send them from your computer, you may send from the tablet, the API connection to your email is going to generate time entries for those emails for all your, regardless of where you sent them. And with the hourly schedule, every 60 minutes, PointOne is talking to those applications and it's generating time entries. The next form of automation here is called computer capture. This is technically a very different form of automation. It's sort of a screen visualization piece, which is specific to your computer, your monitor. So you can use an unlimited number of monitors. It can be on a desktop or a laptop. But what's happening is PointOne is understanding what's going on your screen, is able to figure out what work you're doing, who you're doing it for, and how much time it took, and then is able to generate time entries end to end accordingly. So what we'll do is we'll generate time entries using both of these forms of automation, review those time entries, and then release them into our accounting system. I mentioned here the hourly schedule. This is really the API connection on a going forward basis. But what we're able to do also is generate time entries from those same API connected applications on a retroactive basis. So this is to say, today might be my first day using PointOne. I'm able to go back up to the last 2 years and generate time entries from my email, my calendar, my Zoom, Teams, and so on, just through this retroactive capture feature. So we're going to hit generate here, and it's going to take a second for PointOne to think about what we did, who we did it for, and how much time it took. But it should really give us time entries for everything that we did inside of those applications up to the last month. So I changed the calendar from today to May 25th, and you can see we have some complete time entries here. On the left-hand side, we have the date. Next to that, we have the client and the matter. These are pulled directly from our accounting system. So anytime a new matter or new client passes a conflict check, is available in your practice management system, it's immediately available inside of PointOne, and we can edit those here. We can edit the amount of time, and we can also edit the narrative. So this is just a text box, which is very easy to edit when we're reviewing. And what really stood out to me when the first time I saw this product is just how lawyerly and sophisticated the narratives were when it was not obvious to me how the system would be able to create that along with the right client matter classification. So the role of the timekeeper is to just review these time entries and then just release them into the accounting system. But as you can see here with June 11th, we have a time entry for Pioneer Casualty Insurance as the client, Smith vs. Redwood as the matter. It's a 0.2, so it's more than 6 minutes. And the narrative says email correspondence with claim specialist R. Patel regarding liability assessment and authorization to issue medical and employment record subpoenas. Again, it's a very lawyerly narrative. It's designed to be ready to be delivered to the firm and ultimately to the client. When I click on this I button, I'm able to get access to the email itself that was used to generate this time entry. It's at my fingertips. And a couple of things that I want to point out here is one, if you look at the subject line of the email, it's very generic, not obvious how PointOne was able to understand this is the client and the matter based on the subject line. And the same is true with the body of the email. There's no client matter number or anything like that in the email. It's, again, non-obvious how PointOne was able to associate this work with this client and this matter. We're able to click on why this matter was selected. The Smith vs. Redwood freight matter was selected because Raj, so the recipient, is known from prior conversations to be the claim specialist on this file. And although Raj is a claim specialist on numerous files, this email discusses the mixed liability analysis, dash cam and scene evidence, and requested medical and employment subpoenas that align with that claim. So what's happening here is PointOne is not only looking at this email specifically, it's able to really understand this email in the context of all your other legal workflows and generate really precise and accurate client matter classifications and narratives accordingly. So just to recap for a second, what we did is we looked at this API connected form of automation, which is an hourly schedule on a going forward basis. It's the retroactive capture on a backward looking basis, and we generated time entries there. The next thing I'd like to do is show you computer capture. And computer capture, again, is a screen visualization component. Whatever is happening on your computer, PointOne is able to make sense of it and produce the same kind of time entries we're seeing in a really sophisticated way. So we're able to have both of these running at the same time, and we can sort of toggle these on and off as we like. But what I will do is I will just open up a Word document, and this is a brief in federal court in the Uber versus Waymo case. The brief is about whether a former Uber board member can testify under the federal rules of evidence. So this is the kind of document that I might be working on when I was practicing, but I'm going to make some very superficial edits to this brief. And if what often happens is you may have started out with some research and then turn that research into an outline, and then turn that outline into this brief. But what you may need to do is to go back and do some more research while you're drafting this brief. So you can see here, Section 3, Federal Rule 701, prohibit Waymo from soliciting lay witness opinions. I'm just going to open up my web browser and do some research. And a couple things to kind of keep in mind as I'm doing this research. First is I have not given any intentional indication to the system about which client this was for, which matter this is on. Basically, it feels like when I'm doing this research that I'm back in law school, I'm just not thinking about time entry at all. And the second thing is that while I opened up Google Chrome and I just did a Google search here, very importantly, this is application agnostic with respect to this form of functionality. I could be in Claude, I could be in Harvey, I could be in a Lexis or a Westlaw. I could be in a totally different web browser. It does not make a difference for purpose of time entry inside of PointOne. And if I get distracted from my research for a second, and I wanted to just look up World Cup scores for a moment, this is the kind of thing where lawyers are doing a lot of context switching constantly. And I might not want time entries for all the work that I'm doing on my computer or all the activity, just some of it. And as I'm doing that, I might get an email from a totally different client in a totally different matter. And I want to respond to it. So there, just to recap for a second, we did 3 time entries, or excuse me, we did 3 workflows. We did some drafting, some research, and we sent an email. And we also had some sort of personal browsing in terms of our web activity. So I'm going to hit pause here on computer capture. And the purpose of this is really just to generate time entries immediately, as opposed to there being a 3 to 5 minute delay. So now that we've hit pause, see it's loading. I'm just going to jump to today here. There we go. We have 3 time entries for the work that we just did. The first is in Uber versus Waymo. It's a PointOne, revised introductory section of draft brief in support of precluding opinion testimony of B. Gurley. That's exactly what we did in Microsoft Word here. Next, we have researched the scope of lay opinion testimony under the federal rules of evidence in connection with the brief. This is technically very difficult to understand that that's also for Uber versus Waymo. What's happening here is PointOne understands the legal issues in this brief, 1. 2, it understands that this research is related to those issues. And then 3, the fact that the research and the drafting were done contemporaneously is enough for PointOne to understand that's for the same client and matter. Finally, we sent an email to a private client here in a divorce action, completely different client, and we have a time entry for that too. So what is happening there is PointOne is figuring out what work we're doing, what we want time entries for, what we don't, and is able to give us a sort of complete, ready to invoice timesheets for all of that work. I want to pause there to see if there are any questions.
There are, Andrew. We've got 3 questions, all anonymous. So if you don't get through them in the next sort of minute and a half, I'll get you to handwrite your response or type your responses in there if you go into the Q&A.
Awesome. So the first question is I saw is about outside counsel guidelines. I'd like to just kind of take that very quickly. As I mentioned, the product is enforcing outside counsel guidelines at the point of time entry creation inside of this product. If we were to just go back to this time entry we saw from June 11th, we're able to click on this I button and see which rules have been applied in the creation of this time entry. So just as an example, every time entry narrative must end with a period or refer to individuals by first initial, last name format. If in the event that we edited this time entry to make this first name, last name, or take away a period, what would happen, and this will happen probably fairly soon, is that this will turn red and it will be flagged. And very quickly, with just one click, we will be able to recharacterize that time entry in a way that makes it guideline compliant. So the effect of this is that because we have all of your outside counsel guidelines and internal firm billing guidelines inside of PointOne time, any entry that you're releasing into your accounting system is guideline compliant per se.
Okay, Andrew, I'll stop you there. If you could go in, I believe there's a question also that someone's dropped into the chat that we will transcribe into the Q&A. If you could go into the Q&A yourself, Andrew, and type out responses to each of those questions, that'd be terrific. Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate it. And I'm going to introduce Carlos from Lexsoft to take over. Thank you.
Okay, so, well, first of all, thanks a lot. Let me share my screen. And we're going to be talking today about knowledge management. And we're going to introduce you to our knowledge management software, T3, that it has been or is being used by several of the top 20, top 50 law firms worldwide. Okay, so before I start talking about knowledge management, let me tell you a little bit about the diamond journey, which reflects a lot knowledge management. When we are looking for diamonds, what we have to do is we have to go to a mine, and in that mine we're going to find a lot of dirt, a lot of rocks, and what we have to do is we need to process and extract a bunch of rocks in order to find the raw diamonds. Once that we have the raw diamonds, that will be our step number 2. What we do is we need to look at those raw diamonds and sorting and evaluate those raw diamonds. Once that is being done, then we can go into a cutting and polishing and turning those raw diamonds in actual gems that in our final step we're going to mount on the top of jewelry. Well, this is exactly the same thing that happens in the step 1. The mine will be our DMS. The extracting process of those best documents that we have that we're going to that we want to use in knowledge management is going to be the publish cycle. So it's going to be making sure that we send those documents from the active library from the lawyer into the actual knowledge management area. From that moment onwards, what we're going to do is we're going to curate those documents. So we're going to make sure that we're going to look for the best documents. We're going to make sure that those best documents are, I don't know, redacted and they are prepared in a certain way. But also in our 4th step, what we're going to do is we're going to create an extended profile. That's going to be actually paramount. This is of paramount importance. If we create a really good extended profile in which we add legal taxonomies, in which we extract the main key points, in where we extract parts of clauses, all of the important information about that document, that actually is going to transform those raw documents that we have into actually those gems that we're looking for. And why do we want to have those gems as knowledge documents? To be used in our agentic world. So at the end of the day, what we want is that the lawyers will be able to use different orchestrators in order to go into those knowledge documents and do different tasks. So I'm going to start showing exactly what we have done here, but I'm going to do it backwards. So I'm going to start from the agentic point of view, and in this case, I'm going to be using Claude to interact with my knowledge system. Funny thing is that you don't even see that knowledge system. So you will be able to do it from Claude. In this case, I'm looking for commercial lease agreements in English from the real estate sector. I'm going to use Harvey to compare whatever results I got. And then I'm going to use Claude to actually double check on what Harvey has told me. So what we're seeing right now is that Claude is going directly to my knowledge system, is looking for different taxonomies, is looking to see if I have documents that have been classified as commercial lease agreements, that they are in English, that they are from real estate, and is looking for those documents. It's extracting all of this information, and it's going to start working with them. It's curating all of this information for me. It's preparing all of these documents that I have. So pretty soon, what I'm going to have is a set of documents that it has found in my knowledge system. Please note that the lawyer doesn't even know that they're using T3 or whatever, but he knows that he found 3 documents that actually comply with the rules that we gave him, commercial leases in English and real estate. Now what he's doing is it has extracted that information from those documents and he's sending it to Harvey. So actually we're gonna let Harvey do their magic. So funny thing is that instead of sending the whole document, what we are sending to Harvey is only the metadata extracted. This is super important because that way we can assure that at no point we're sending personal data, which is one of the biggest problems of very large law firms, that they need to assure that when they're using these third-party tools, these fantastic Harvey, Cloud Legal, Legora, and so on, that we are not exposing any information from our clients. So from there on, what we have turned is knowledge documents in actually true results that we can use as a complete task as a lawyer. So this is the importance of actually using all of these orchestrator and agentic tools. But let me explain why does this work. So this works because we have created really good extended metadata profiles for these knowledge documents, because we have turned these raw documents into these gems. So if I start looking at this commercial list, I'm actually doing it directly from iManage. I can just look at my commercial list, which is in my knowledge system within iManage. With a single click, I can open up the classification. And with the classification of this document, it's going to show me is all of the metadata and all of the taxonomies that I have actually classified this document by. Of course, I can always look at all of the different available taxonomies that I have in my firm, but actually those ones on the right are the ones that I have my document classified by. But also we have extracted a bunch of metadata. We have document comments, we have summaries, we have keywords, we have the property description, we have the purpose, we of course have the parties, we have the landlord, we have the tenant, we have all of the specific dates. This is the information that actually we want to share with Harvey, and because we can share the extended profile, we can assure that not personal information is actually exposed. So, okay, let me walk one step back again. So in this case, I'm going to the curation part. So the curation is also done within iManage, within my document management system. At the end of the day, what I want is to have humans in the loop. What I want is to have all of my professional support lawyers making sure that in the case that this document needs to be redacted, it's redacted. In the case that I, have to pass it from my inbox to a second review for maybe a more senior professional support lawyer to look at it, or somebody from the knowledge department to look at it, I can always do it. I can have as complicated or as simple of a workflow for curation as needed. And of course, automatic redaction, so automatic anonymization is also available within T3. But let's go to the first step. Let's go to the publish area. So what's going on in this publish part of my system? What is going on right now is that I'm a lawyer, that I'm working in this Procter & Gamble deal, and as a lawyer, what I want to do is I just want to automatically send this document to my knowledge area. In this case, I'm just submitting to the knowledge bank. And when I submit it to the knowledge bank, I can ask different questions to the lawyer. Of course, these questions could be answered directly by AI. But for this example, we're going to ask some questions like, which one is the knowledge type? In this case, we know that we're talking about a commercial lease agreement. So because I choose to send a commercial lease agreement, what is going to happen is that automatically it's going to ask me for a specific data from a commercial lease agreement. But please note that I haven't updated any of that data as a lawyer. I mean, I only show you this example so you see what's happening in the background, that depending on a lot of different logic, I can ask for a specific information from a document. Of course, if I go to my knowledge area, also within iManage, and I go to my commercial list that I just published there, if I click classify, what has happened is during these few seconds that it's taken from that document to go from the active library to the knowledge library, the professional support lawyer already has a draft with all of the taxonomies that they have been applied. But not only that, it also has a draft of all of the information that we have extracted from keywords, property description. Of course, I can add comments. I can change any of this information. This is just a draft for me, professional support lawyer, to see exactly what are we working on. So again, super simple. The lawyers, they don't need to do anything but submit to knowledge. and then just use all of the different orchestrators, not only to search for documents, but also to be able to consume and to do complete tasks. You don't want to search for a document. You search for a document because you're going to do something else afterwards. So let me go back to my first slide here. And in my first slide, of course, we have the 5 different steps of our knowledge journey, from the DMS to the agentic. But in reality, what we're doing with T3 knowledge management is we're taking care of the middle part. We're taking care of making it super easy for lawyers to publish information, to send information directly to the knowledge department. As a matter of fact, we can even have automatic publish workflows based on, is this the final document? Is this the final document and compliance with certain logic? We can send directly those documents to the knowledge department. We can even make sure that the lawyer don't even need to do any of these tasks. Then we have the curation, in which what we're going to be doing in reality is just, first of all, making sure that these are really good documents, that maybe this document needs to be redacted, this other document don't need to be redacted. And then we're going to go over all of the extended profile. We can make that extended profile as large as you want. Right now, we're working with about 97 different document types and a little bit over 200 different data points that we can extract. So, and of course, every day we're building more and more, and everything is automatic. We just want the professional super lawyers to use it as a draft and to make sure that this is done. At the end of the day, what we want for the lawyer is to use orchestrators and don't even need to worry if they have T3 or any knowledge system. They just need to make sure that instead of going to the DMS, where you probably have 100 million documents, you go only to those absolutely great documents that you have in your knowledge system. And with that, if there are any questions, please let me know.
Yes, Carlos, if you check the Q&A, we've got a question in there.
Sorry, I don't know. I cannot check it. Can you read it for me?
Okay, yes. What is the difference between sending to an orchestrator documents or their extended profile?
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting. Okay, so of course you can do both, and it depends on the logic that you want to put either for your firm or even for specific documents. The reason that sometimes you don't want to send the whole document into an agentic or into a third party is because those documents could have personal data, and maybe you have signed with your final customer that you are never going to use AI, or you're never going to expose their personal data into a third-party system. So, because when you send only the metadata, you can assure by code, actually, you can assure it for sure, that you're only sending the important and specific parts of the document that you have extracted, so Harvey, so LEAH, so co-counsel, so Deep Judge can do their magic with it. So it's not that you have to do one or the other. You could have different scenarios and run them all at once. But at every single point, what you want to make sure is that you comply 100% with the mandate that you have from your actual client.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carlos. I think that's it for questions. There's the way to get in touch with Carlos and the Lexsoft team. Thank you, Carlos. Really appreciate it. As I bring in Thomas, I'm just going to mention that in case you didn't know, that Legaltech Hub, we offer advisory services, whether you're a law firm, a corporate legal department, or in fact a vendor. We have experts who can help you across a range of services with our advisory and consulting. There's a link there in the chat for each one of those three, a law firm, corporate legal, and vendor, to learn more. Okay, over to Thomas from LEAH. Welcome, Thomas.
Well, hello, everyone. Appreciate the time today. I am pleased to demonstrate the LEAH Agentic OS platform, and I'll walk through it kind of piece by piece and then show a demonstration of it in action in a moment. And I welcome questions at any time. There will be some complex, concepts discussed, but the goal is to kind of give an overview with certainly, an invitation to request more information or a conversation going forward. But at the most basic, straightforward level, LEAH Agentic OS is a platform that we've designed to support operations within law firms, within enterprise, corporate legal departments, with the goal of connecting the full legal function into a single intelligence layer, right? Where the specialist agents and the orchestrators that manage them and delegate to them will handle kind of the operational work, and your lawyers and lawyers within the certain departments as organized currently will handle the judgment calls. It's the idea of having a system that really supports, escalates, triages, and enables the humans to have quick access to the information that's most pertinent to their day-to-day, and broadly a view across the entire department and organization. And just very quickly, I bring up this kind of entry point to LEAH to show kind of the concept of Agentic OS, where orchestrators that you are able to build within the platform are designed to, by department or by kind of area of subject matter expertise or the needs for kind of daily operations or kind of more broad facing management of information and processes, operations within the organization. Orchestrators are the core of the platform. Now, those can be designed in LEAH Studio. So built into the platform is the ability to say, hey, in natural language, here is the need. This is the use case. This is what our department focuses on. Or even by client, you can say, hey, here's an institutional or important client to us, and create an orchestrator that is purpose-built for the services and the work, the needs for a client. Finally, or additionally, there are agentic flows. This is important because generative AI, its core strength is as a probabilistic system, right? It is able to analyze and identify and even generate, important language for you. Agentic flows are the deterministic aspect of LEAH, in that you can define how and when the orchestrators will do their work for you, and how they will notify you or report on broader bits of information. And the final aspect of the Agentic OS is what we call agentic apps. And in essence, that is a way for you internally to create an interface that is a straightforward way for specific needs, either ask and answer from an advisory perspective, or for a more kind of deterministic, straightforward, almost point solution way of leveraging LEAH. You have another way internally within your same platform as an OS to create interfaces, let's say, for your teams to quickly be able to leverage a specific strength of the overall platform. So I'd like to start with this just to kind of give you a sense of the breadth of capabilities and how Studio built into the platform is really your ability to create, to iterate, to evolve, and to add functionality going forward, right? So it's not a closed loop in any way. Okay, so with that said, I like to also visually present the concept of LEAH as a platform. So what I'm showing you here is a visual, right? And the purpose of showing you this is the legal department, for instance, or a department within the greater legal team can be designed so that orchestrators, these sub kind of really management tools, and if the super orchestrator is the management tool, sub orchestrators underneath can be built for their respective strengths. So I show this just visually as an example of the understanding of the breadth of the platform. So individual departments, or kind of regulatory and compliance, or the need for contract management, or commercials, or M&A, all the different ways that you may need specific kind of use case support. The platform itself can be designed so each of those has its own, kind of galaxy here in the universe, but you have a visual concept of the overall orchestration, right? The maestro layer of managing potentially multiple orchestration teams, each with their respective, AI tools and strengths. So I like to show you just as a concept that you can start with, however many use cases are the current need, but also build from that and have them connect and delegate and really understand kind of the overall operations to facilitate efficiency and visibility, and really get your teams from a productivity standpoint, the tools, the information, and really, the results that they're striving to achieve. Okay, so this is more conceptual, right? The idea of the overall platform. So now let's look at it in a more detailed view. So I'm now kind of connected to our AI native legal department, right? I've named it Vanguard, but obviously, you know, internally you can have your own naming conventions that really either inspire or connect to kind of current terms of art or just kind of a culture, let's say. So within Vanguard, I have 8 sub-orchestrators. I have a contract specialist, drafting and authoring, specialist. I have kind of advisory or kind of intake and, best practices, policies and procedures management, regulatory compliant, spend management. There are any number of potential orchestrators that would match, let's say, or enhance and enable departments within your teams. Also, you'll see here that we can always add a new team member that would be, brought online and would provide meaningful but more specific support for a vertical or a use case that is, a common aspect of the platform. So other things that I can see here when I log in, right? This is giving me a very broad view, let's say, of all of the kind of purpose-built or focused AI tools that can work in our system. Now, you'll also see that I have kind of a live view of how these sub-orchestrators are working for me. I have a live activity view of who, like Petrova, my contract specialist has received an email and has triaged it and is now working on kind of red lines, let's say, for a contract that needs to be via a playbook that is ours to control, following those guidance instructions. We can mark up documents very quickly. That's one aspect of this sub-orchestrator's strength. I also have kind of aggregate views. So I know that there were 112 requests that were managed today, right? And I can connect that to our understanding of kind of cost per request or cost per activity, or the opposite, the amount that we can bill or gain from that. And also I have kind of completion rates. So the goal is to not only have these kind of multiple either subject matter or kind of domain specific orchestrators doing their work, but also they report up in essence. So I know exactly how each of them are performing their activities on a regular basis. I also have kind of trends and just visibility. So I think this is an important way to really understand what is going on in any given time, with our goal in having multiple kind of purpose-built tools doing that work for us and either escalating or notifying or really enabling the attorneys with the information that each of these sub-orchestrators is collecting and performing for us. Perfect. Now, the other thing I wanted to show is the team feed. So if I come into this same kind of visual interface, I can see at a team, if I'm managing this team, where in our other kind of technology stack, our other software that we may be using, they are either integrated with or connecting to for the needs for the access to information, right? And for the sharing or the updating of information. So I have visibility into potentially other integrations that are an important way for us to know that we're not needing to kind of replace any, current system that is, benefiting us. Instead, we can add bridges between those systems, remove silos, and really leverage the strength of a platform like this that is really designed to connect multiple systems for their complementary strengths and give me a consolidated way of not only viewing information between them, but acting and interacting with the results of the information that may have been collected in different systems. The other thing I like to point out here, which is more kind of human in the loop, this is where as an attorney, I may benefit being able to pull up my, my LEAH system here, and perhaps those elements that have been triaged and where there's an additional decision-making, need, or in a regular, course of business, the information that needs to come to me, right? There's a needs use section here, which I like because the very specific aspects of maybe all of these orchestrators that are working for us, where, an NDA that we may have been working on has a specific concept that exceeds the parameters that we've, identified as maybe the self-service, right? The automatic response. This is something that I can then very quickly review or, act on or approve. Similarly, other, red line that maybe comes to me depending on my subject matter expertise or, my bandwidth or my connection to a specific project or client, perhaps a compliance or regulatory assessment that we've been working on. And even something that I wanted to show you here is a spend management concept, where within our organization, how we're billing, how we are against budget, let's say for a specific client or budget or client or budget or time period. I have that visibility with the positions or the specific need, the information within any of these needs my review, kind of escalations. I have a summary and quick access to not only how how LEAH has helped me identify an anomaly here, a billing anomaly, but to ensure that we have visibility and quick access to the information I would need in order to resolve this anomaly or approve it if the certain scenario was required the review and the approval. So I'm going through this quickly, but I want to very quickly show the vast capabilities of the system, both at the highest level where I'm viewing all of the kind of agents working for us and the orchestrators that manage them, but even on a per orchestrator basis. I have deep visibility into escalations, or I can come into any one of them and see how that specific tool has been working for us. There are 30 contracts in review. There are critical findings identified. Average playbook alignment could be a very good way for us to kind of gain some efficiencies or visibility that way. And then even under, having a view of information as far as kind of the status of any one of these documents. The goal here is to inform me and provide me with quick access to escalations, the most important information or ask that I need to, resolve in that moment. All of that is both handled by these, domain-specific orchestrators, with their guidance being to escalate the important information to the appropriate user or team, or even at a broad sense, the CLO or a managing partner or department head or whoever would be really who would most benefit, let's say, from this platform being able to report up the important information that then makes me more aware and more productive in on a regular basis. Okay. Now, a lot of that is kind of the user, access to this deep, either broad or specific information that is brought to me that I can then act on, right? So I have kind of broad visibility, and then from a productivity standpoint, I know how to kind of triage or prioritize my efforts. That's kind of the overall goal and really the key benefit of the platform. I also want to show you a few elements here of the platform. So the ability to create, right, an orchestrator built directly into the platform. The orchestrators even have their own skills that we've developed, something over 150, close to 200 skills that an orchestrator will select in order to empower the kind of workers here that can automatically do the work for us. And then finally, at a broad sense, the integrations, the other tools that you may be using. We have, everything from kind of a document management system to, e-signature platforms to, the tools that we all use on a regular basis. The idea of this system as an OS is not to make you build up from a blank slate. It's rather you can identify your use cases, define them with natural language, and have a system here that can actually perform for you, even ad hoc. I can come in and ask a question across my, my department, run a deadline compliance scan across active matters, flag anything overdue or approaching within 7 days. Something like that, which used to involve multiple steps or different systems that would have their own reporting. This is a way for me to ask simple questions and have the system itself understand the need and then triage and identify, find the information collected and report back to me. So this is really a platform or OS for legal departments in order to kind of provide that intelligence layer across all of the operational aspects of the tool, and without ever losing the ability to simply ask questions and get the information I may need, where at the end of that process, I have, bear with me.
Great, Thomas, thank you so much. Look, there are a couple of questions in the Q&A from Joseph there. If you don't mind, Thomas, you can go in and actually type in your responses to each of those in the Q&A. Appreciate that. Thanks very much, Thomas. I will now introduce Varun from Mitratech. Varun.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you. Varun Guy. I'm a senior solutions consultant with Mitratech. So I have been in the legal industry for about a decade now, doing work with our entire legal suite. So I'll jump into that in a second, but nice to meet everyone here. So excited to kind of walk you through our enterprise legal management. So matter management, spend management, document management, all elements of that, but just how we've been able to bring in AI into the overall platform and what we've seen from the industry and how we're deciding it should be in there, and then where we're going in the future to kind of how we see it leveraging legal work and really bringing the tool to where you exist inside the matter and spend platform. I promise I won't do death by PowerPoints here, but I do want to just kick it off just a little bit. So as we jump into Mitratech as an organization, we work with some of the largest companies globally in the world, and the legal departments all have very complex needs. And as we continue to work with them, we find and we hear a lot that you're continuously being asked to do more with less. So by bringing in AI into the platform, we're able to really enable teams to come in and work at their highest capacity, really focusing on that high value work and taking a lot of that low value work, that repetitive information off of your plates, and really allowing your users to self-service as much of that as possible. When we talk about our AI platform, it wraps around the entire matter management, spend management, enterprise legal management suite. So these are some of the most common things that we're hearing across the industry of where we can start to leverage AI to really have the legal work be most impacted. The intake and delivery, the service delivery, we'll take a quick look at there. We'll also take a quick look at the matter management and spend management. We won't really get into the document piece, but we also will take a look at the analytical piece. But the agent, the Aries agent is what we call it, gives your users the opportunity to be able to not only pull back information, but surface that information in a meaningful way and consolidate it across a record so that you can start to be able to summarize and really get the meat and the content of what you're looking at instead of having to go in there and really dive deep in. So as we move to the actual platform itself, what you'll notice is on the right-hand side, we have the agent that sits with you as you continue to move through the platform. And the other great thing here is no matter where you are in here, you're able to leverage this agent not only to pull back information for you, but actually also execute on tasks. So some of the things that we're seeing in here for pulling back data is just asking a simple question like you would within any kind of natural language way to be able to surface information without having to rely on all of your legal team or your legal ops team to bring that up. This also really helps to provide more of that just-in-time information. And what we're seeing in the industry is a shift away from more of that dashboard-centric style information and more of this natural language querying that we could just ask the question when we need it, at the time we need it, and then pull it back for ourselves. Team Connect overall, which is the matter management spend management platform, Team Connect overall is a very roles-based and permission-based system. So what you're seeing in this dashboard is providing information in a way that's always going to be right for the person that's seeing it at the time that they need to see it. And when I'm able to ask that question, I'm not only able to pull that or query it against a database, but it's also going to make sure that all of those permissions and those roles inside the system adhere to the way that question is being asked. And over again, we keep approaching this very methodically, especially in the legal industry, that your data is very valuable and we never want to expose data to people that shouldn't see it. So the idea that we've approached this with as we continue to work with our clients, as we continue to work with you all and industry experts, is how can we really make it so that the information you get is following and adhering to all of those permissions that you would normally be able to leverage when working with a system like this. As we look to expand upon how we're pulling this back, it's not just going to pull out more of this tabular information, but really drive to help build some of those dashboards across the actual industry. So I need a report that's comparing my invoice spend total to the vendors that operate and provide it to me in a graphical format. So that's also where we're continuing to evolve with this. And the AI within Team Connect is evolving every day with our clients. Now, the other great thing about this is that you're able to not only use this to surface information, but you're also able to have it execute on tasks for you. So, for example, if I wanted to help me to create a matter, this is taking a process that typically might take 15, 20 minutes as part of that intake. And instead, I'm able to come in here, choose a document that may already exist, do it right within the tool, and now use the AI and the natural language processing and the intelligent document processing and extract all that information from the document itself, really consolidating that process that could take a long time as part of the intake and distilling it down into only a few different minutes. So what it's going to do now is it's going to actually go through the content of that document. It's going to automatically generate a name or a matter description for this. It's automatically going to generate other additional information and automatically match these fields into your existing data sets. And I know I just heard it a second ago, but the idea of human in a loop, we're keeping across the industry, right? We keep hearing it over and over, especially in the legal industry, because it's just as important to make sure that, yes, this is pulling that information out, but how can we continue to validate that information? So in this case, if we decide that this doesn't actually need to be a regulatory and compliance type matter, we'll be able to easily define that as we work with walking through that matter designer here, and then actually have that information leveraged and pull out. We hear all the time that matter creation is a very laborious process, right? No one likes to come in here and add different data fields all the time. So this really helps not just consolidate the time it takes to launch these matters, but even more importantly, it helps with data cleanliness. So you're making sure you're getting the right data in the first time. You're reducing the back and forth as part of this matter creation or matter update process, and really giving your users the opportunity to come in here and create that matter or execute on that with only a few different clicks here. So really improving the efficiency across this entire process. The other thing I will mention here is as we look to expand upon being able to add a document right into here to create that matter, we're also expanding the scope of it. So we can, because the underlying technology is already there, how do we come in here and actually use the same process to create matters directly from email? Or oftentimes we hear create process from service of process, right? To create the matter directly from service of process. So all these are really laborious things we keep hearing as how can we reduce the clicks it takes just to get that information in there, and then our attorneys, they can spend the time actually evaluating the matter and understanding what's happening here. As we shift to extrapolating on that, what we've also done with the AI layers, not only can we execute those tasks, not only can we pull in that information, but we can actually then surface that information in a way that it makes sense when we are actually working on those matters. So for an example, let's say you're working on 15, 20 different matters, and you haven't actually gone back to them and looked at them in a while. So what we've done is we've added this panel over here on the right-hand side that really helps to bring consistency across your matters by exposing things like similar records. So if you have the same judge that's been on another matter, how can we surface that information quickly so that we can then approach it from that direction? How can we show recent updates really fast so that we can get up to speed on our matter really quickly and easily? And then how could we also leverage things like our internal strategy playbook? So as you institutionalize knowledge, we're able to leverage that institutionalized knowledge, align with that business risk, and really put it right here inside the matter itself so you can work right in that one place and understand what is the best strategy that we can approach this case, this matter with, so that we can start working with it. And because it is just a platform, anything that's also financial related can be surfaced in the matter side as well. So as we talk about bringing efficiency and speed across getting up to date and actually understanding what's happening in that matter, we can start to see things like, is there potential savings that we're missing out when we're working with the invoice itself? Is there timekeepers that have been approved or anything that's happened that's violated our billing guidelines that we've rolled into here? And we can surface that information really quickly and easily so that I can dig in and really understand what's happening. From the financial side, last thing I'll mention here, from the financial side, as we pivot to there, we do also see that same type of insight brought to the finance side and brought into those invoices to understand what's actually going on in that invoice without having to dive in line item by line item inside of that invoice. So you'll see up here at the top, that same summary exists where I can start to be able to see things like, is the work that my firms are submitting to me and doing for me, my outside counsel firms doing for me, actually providing me value? Is it moving that needle forward with when I'm leveraging them? So that type of information gets brought up into the summarization. And one of the ones we hear most often, almost every time across the industry, is on staffing levels. Are we using the right resource inside of that particular matter? Are we partner heavy on this one or associate light? And why is that actually going on before I even dive into the invoice itself? So really give me that breakdown of that work and of that progress that's happening while also exposing things around staffing, which we hear the most often. Got a quick question here. So does Mitratech see more common workflows leveraged for different activities through the matter lifecycle? So we did just look at an example of one, so where we saw the matter creation happening. The same thing can happen as part of the matter updates. So we see that as well. And then additionally, we are seeing it as part of matter closure as well. So just like matter opening, your data integrity becomes an issue. Matter closure is almost just as important, right? Are we closing the matter when it needs to be closed? Do we have all of the relevant information that we need to? And if not, can we launch other adjacent workflows to make sure we capture that? One of the most common ones we see there is sending a survey to the outside counsel or to the lead attorney. Hey, how did it work using this outside counsel? Did they adhere to their budget? Did they submit their invoices in a timeliness manner? And take all of those different data points and build a profile around not just your matter closure process, but also build a profile around things like panel status or preferred status for your firms, or if you need to go back for rate negotiations to understand, hey, you did all this work for us and we leveraged you in all these ways, but you didn't actually provide us the value we were looking for. So really impact those hard rate negotiation conversations. Another one, are playbooks required for agents to follow, or are they predetermined? You don't have to have the playbooks for those internal playbooks to be leveraged in here. We are working with our clients right now and then helping build those profiles for what's leveraged inside of Team Connect to be able to help you understand what those different comparative points are, or what those different data points are that are important to you when you're looking to work on a matter. One thing I will say, and one thing we get asked a lot, is no, we are not using your data to train the models, especially with some of the really large data intensive heavy companies that we have, some of those really highly scrutinized and regulated organizations that we work with. That becomes a really, really important point. And I think overall with AI in general, it becomes an important point. Are you using my data to train that? The answer is no. I also do see from the industry overall, a lot of organizations are being tasked to leverage their own internal AIs. This is moving really fast. It's moving at a quick pace and things are changing every day. So your organizations are also being tasked to either use something that's already out there or build your own. So what we've also done as another approach is integrate this AI into other AI models. So you can, for example, go into your Copilot, say, I need it to create a matter, and it's going to go ahead and create that matter inside of Team Connect as part of your matter creation process via Copilot. So those integrations we're also approaching as just as important as being able to build them inside of this tool and surfacing that information for you. All right, well, that is everything I wanted to show you at a really high level. Oh, sorry, I think someone came off mute.
No, Varun, that's me. Great job. Is there you want to put a contact information up there for what to do next? There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Varun. Great job. Just before we start our final demo of the session, I just wanted to let you know that there is a Legaltech jobs page connected with Legaltech Hub as well. Whether you're looking for qualified people in innovation, KM, IT, in legal technology fields, in law firms or corporate legal, or you're on the lookout for your own role, your next opportunity, check out Legaltech Jobs. We run that through Legaltech Hub as well. Okay, our final demo today. Look, one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Legaltech Hub is our objectivity. We make sure that we maintain strict editorial control over all of our solutions that are over 3,000 solutions that we list on our website, on our directory. So we make sure that we stay objective with all of them. With that being said, to present the greatest, most transformative solution in the history of human endeavor, Jim from Legaltech Hub.
Thank you for that introduction. Just want to say a little bit real quick. Back in 1889, Charles Holland was a commissioner of the U.S. Patent Office, and he's quoted as having said that the U.S. Patent Office would soon shrink in size and eventually close because everything that can be invented has been invented. You can see how ridiculous that it sounds today. So I'm going to keep this to 11 minutes, 37 seconds. I'm going to show you exactly how Legaltech Hub works in practice. I'm going to be sharing my screen throughout. Feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A chat. One thing right up front is that we're much more than a directory. So Legaltech Hub, we are the leading global insights and analysis platform for legal technology. We work with law firms, in-house legal teams, and technology vendors, helping everyone there to navigate what is genuinely a complex and fast-moving market. We are independent, we're data-driven, we're built specifically for the legal sector. We're not affiliated with any vendor. There's no commission, there's no pay to play. So we do three things here at Legaltech Hub. We have our online platform, which includes the directory, 3,000 plus solutions, 70,000 visitors a month. Plus we have LTH Premium, which actually sits on top of the directory with insights, analysis, and procurement guidance. We also have our advisory services, which are bespoke hands-on support, and of course our events, our flagship events for law firms and for in-house teams. There's three reasons why people come to LTH. First is either they have a specific legal tech problem that they need to solve right now. Two, they're looking at competing products and want to get an independent view. And the third reason is that they're doing horizon scanning. They're trying to keep track of the market, staying on top of things that's emerging. And quite frankly, you know, firms are actually doing all three of these at one time. So let's start with the directory. Even if you're familiar with it, you know, I'm going to show you some features that are brand new and some that are exclusive to our premium subscribers. So here you can see we have over 3,000, well now 3,100 solutions. Every vendor gets a basic listing. Vendors that provide us more comprehensive information have a premium listing. So if you're interested in any of these solutions, all you need to do is simply come in and hit this follow button, and you'll receive email notifications whenever that product is updated. There's new features and new integration, price changes, and automatically will be sent to you as a push notification. But you know, following is just the beginning, if you would, because the directory now doubles as a complete portfolio management tool. This is something that's new. It's only available to premium subscribers. But when you hit that follow button, you can see you have three options here. You can mark the solution as something you currently own in your portfolio, maybe one that you reviewed in the past and discounted because it lacks some features, or that you're actually are watching this and you want to stay on top of what's happening in that area. So all of this is there in one place for you. The portfolio feature that I mentioned before, you know, here you can track technology that you currently have. You can track the license, how many licenses you have, what the renewal date's on, who owns it internally. You can also add notes in here as well. So you can just put, oh, this comes up and renews in October. Also, I mentioned things that maybe you've reviewed and you've discounted in the past. If there's a change that comes around, it's posted on Legaltech Hub. We're going to send that to you automatically so you'll know right away. And then finally, things that you're watching. You know, the bottom line here is now you've got everything in one place. You don't have that spreadsheet that's never up to date that you never can find. You can come right here and you've got everything that you need in one spot. This becomes one single source of truth for you. Now, as I mentioned before, this directory, when you first look at it, there's over 3,000 solutions that are here. Quite overwhelming. It's very comprehensive, but we built this wonderful taxonomy here on the left-hand side. Now, here I'm giving an example. Let's say we're looking at document automation, and we want to make sure that this integrates with our SharePoint system. We have over 330 different integrations that we also track here. And then finally, we want to make sure that this has AI capabilities as well. So now what I've been able to do in 3 simple clicks is take that 3,100 list of vendors down to a short list of 10. And now this becomes my list to work with to be able to move forward. Now at this point, the other thing I can do is I can take a look and compare these solutions side by side simply by coming in here and clicking the compare button. You can do up to 5, but in this case, I'm only going to do 3. And now you've got this wonderful comparison where you can come by and you can see them side by side. The description of the product, what it does, where they're headquartered, what languages that they're in, their funding situation. Also, you have what I like to refer to as the holy grail of research here, is that you have a list of their existing customers are. And obviously, if you can find a firm that's very similar to your firm, that certainly de-risks that process for you. Now, as I scroll down here, you'll notice that some of this information is behind padlocks. As a premium subscriber, all that information is opened up to you. The other thing it does too at this stage is that, let's say, for example, one of your requirements is it has to be GDPR compliant. So here I can look in and go, this solution is, this solution is, this solution is not. So very quickly, you're able to eliminate those people that can't meet your minimum requirements. And in essence, what it does, it stops you from chasing things down a rabbit hole, getting to the very 11th hour with the vendor and suddenly find out they can't do what you need them to do. Now, the other thing that we also offer here is our LTH navigator. So here you simply click on the navigator, type in a keyword search. So I put in here, what is the difference between AI workflows and agentic workflows? This searches across our research library, so not on the open web, just our own content. So what you get back is a verified sourced answer with all the underlying documents here, and now you've got that question answered for you right there. So at a very high level, that is the directory. Now what I want to talk about is our LTH Premium. And with LTH Premium, these are what we refer to as our 3 pillars here. Our solution guides, which are for whoever's running your selection and your procurement process. Our know-how, which is aimed squarely at innovation and knowledge management teams, covering things like adoption, change management, AI strategy. And finally, our lawyer resources, which is written for the lawyers themselves in simple, plain English. So together, these 3 pillars come together to support the entire firm, not just your technology team. Now, as I scroll down, we have 32 premium categories. We're adding 5 to 10 new ones every year. So I'm going to walk you through what a typical selection process looks like if you are a LTH Premium customer. So for this example, I'm going to use the AI Legal Assistant as our example category. As I click on this, each category has a subject matter expert who has written and curated the step-by-step resources. Once again, the goal here is to de-risk this process from initial research all the way through to a signed contract. So everyone starts off with the landscape overview. And what this is, this explains what the technology is, the use cases, the benefits, the risks, the adoption challenges. This is something that you can share with a partner or a stakeholder to explain to them what the technology does. We then follow that up with our evaluation framework. And here what we have are expert written questions for you to take in when you do the demo. Technical questions, commercial, data governance, all those things. So you don't need to be an expert anymore. We've done a lot of that heavy lifting for you. And then from there, you've done the demos, and now you want to be able to score all of those technologies that you've seen. We have our requirements template here. I'll make that a little bit bigger for you so you can see it. And here, you're able to come in and weight and score each solution against your priorities. You can add your own things to the spreadsheet as well. But at the end of the day, what you've got now is a defensible recommendation that can take you straight to your partners or to finance. We also have here as well is our business case template. This is category specific. And I think what most people tell us they find the most benefit out of is our ROI that's here. And here, you can take this document, this ROI, combine that with our landscape document when you present your business case up to upper management, explaining not only what the product is, but what the turnaround is and what the payback will be as well. Now, before I move off of this, I do want to talk about something we have called our insights. And here we have over 140 of these. I'll grab the latest one here. And what we do is that we conduct a structured interview with the vendor. We come through and we find out what it is. We're literally sitting in your seat asking the questions that you would want to ask. And then at the end, we actually sit down and we recorded a demo with our team asking those buyer side questions. So what happens is you can actually see the product in action before you ever pick up the phone and call a vendor for a demo. Now I want to move back to our know-how section, and just right here. And here I mentioned this is deep dive content library for your knowledge managements and your innovation teams. So they're independent, they're never sponsored. They cover things like adoption, change management, AI strategy, all of these things that are actionable and ready to put into place. Now, one of the things that we've done is that we've actually tracked AI adoption across 130 global law firms over the last 3 years in conjunction with the skills organization. So here you can come in and see where things are, what's live in pilots, what are actively being considered. You can see the trajectory of things, what's accelerating, what's stalling. And really, so you're not looking at a snapshot, you're actually looking at how this has been progressing over time. What we're probably best known for is our generative AI map. You probably have seen this before. This is the one that came out in March. We've got a new one that's going to be coming out next week in July. We're tracking over 1,000 technologies from 800 vendors across 19 different categories. This is fully interactive. You can click on it by category, or you can click on by solutions. Teams use this to try to make sense of the market, which is becoming very, very hard to keep track of. This is actually doubled in size in the last 12 months. I'm excited to see what size it's going to be when it rolls out next week. But a lot of the knowledge management innovation folks will take this map and show it to the partners and the stakeholders just to give them an idea about how complex things have become. The final pillar that I want to talk about here is our lawyer resources. And here, what we have are articles that are written specifically for your fee owners and your lawyers. So this is not written in technical terms, but it's designed to help them comply with the ABA in America to stay on top of what's happening in legal technology. So this is just an example of a simple guide to legal AI. You can assign this as is, or you can take this and fold this into your own internal newsletters and send it out. But this is designed to really help them stay up to speed on what's happening in technology. As I start to talk about the other two things that we do, obviously we have our events. Our Demo Dozens is a good example of that you all have attended today. We've got some other ones coming up in the next couple of months. We also have 3 flagship events that we run every year called Horizons in New York, London, and Sydney. As a premium subscriber, you get a 50% discount off of any of those delegate passes. And also, we talked about this a little bit before, but we offer our advisory support, if you would, for more detailed and one-on-one kind of work. So there's 6 areas that we cover. The 2 main ones that seem to be the most in demand right now are our AI intelligence and the solutions selection, kind of help you walk through that process. Thanks everybody for your time. I'm happy to set up a tailored walkthrough with you or your firm, or if you're a vendor, I'd love to do a walkthrough with you on how we help you with the top of funnel and how do we go to market. So Chris, that's it for me.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate it, mate. And look, and that brings us to the end of our Demo Dozen for June. Our next one will be on August 4th. We hope as many of you as possible can join us for that. We have on the calendar ahead of us, in chronological order, on July 30th. I doubt there's anyone from that part of the world, but if you're in Sydney, the world's greatest city ever. We've got our Sydney Horizons event. On August 23rd, we'll be holding our ILTA Trivia Night as we kick off our presence at ILTACon in Nashville. And then on September 23rd, we will be holding our flagship New York Innovation Conference that we've talked to you about all of those during the event. If you've missed any of the demos or you want to revisit anything you've seen today, we will be posting the entire event on our YouTube page. We will send you an email with a link to that. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all of our vendors and to all of our participants. We will see you next time.